Welcome to the Accessible Hunter podcast. I'm Greg Trainer along with my co-host Mike Hudson. And today we've got a really great podcast on. We've got Lea, Ken, and Chip Madren. And I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, guys.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Perfect. Mike, what's going on in South Carolina today, brother?
Man, we got lots of sun today, buddy. We're trying to get ready. You know, the turkeys skunked us out a little bit, so now it's on the dove fields. So we'll be working on it a little bit along with some more schooling. So always a glutton for punishment.
Man, I feel terrible. Our turkey season started on the 4th, and I haven't been out turkey hunting yet. But here in Pennsylvania, it starts all day. So up until today, you can only hunt until noon. And I just haven't had an opportunity to get out turkey hunting yet. But I'm going to try to get Beth after work to go out and maybe get a bird one day here. I really want to thank Lea, Chip, and Ken for coming on the podcast today. They're from down in Georgia, and they've got an outstanding story of resilience to tell. And I've been looking forward to speaking with them. Guys, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Go ahead, Chip.
Hey, I'm Chip. I battled brain cancer and come back to the outdoors and now trying to get back some. So that's my basic introduction.
Leah.
I'm Lea. I'm Chip's mom. As he said, Chip is a brain cancer survivor. He's 27 years old. He was diagnosed at 13. One of those days where literally he was in school that morning and in brain surgery that night. Hasn't walked again since that day. Spends his life in a wheelchair. He's visually impaired, hearing impaired, but that has not slowed him down one bit. Chip does anything he can out in the outdoors. I do everything I can to support him, and I think we have a lot of fun. I know you guys were just talking about turkey hunting. The three of us just got back from the Florida Keys doing a little mahi fishing. Chip, how many did you get?
We got 19 mahi and one blackfin tuna. It was really, really fun.
I had a really good day. Did a little tarpon fishing, did a little snapper fishing. And then today, Chip's going to go out and plant the dove fields because, again, on to the next season.
Wow.
You're killing me. The Florida Keys are one of my spots. I'd sit down there all day, every day.
All day.
Oh, it's pretty nice down there.
Exactly. I told Ken we could get together and eat some shrimp. Well, they got a boatload of happy hour right there, and they just keep it
Oh,
coming.
God.
So you guys were doing some offshore fishing then, right? I mean, you went out pretty far?
Yeah, we were off 26 miles. But it was a lot of fun. It was kind of rough, but didn't bother me at all.
We ran into a nice guy down there named Ken who has an accessible fishing boat, and he'll take anybody in a wheelchair fishing in the Florida Keys. We'll post the link.
You know we need to share that link.
Yeah, I have his link.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll get the word out about that because I was going to ask what the accessibility was like, Chip, and did you use any kind of specialty fishing equipment?
No, not really. I pretty much have everything else except for balance. I just don't have balance. So using a regular fishing rod and that kind of stuff, that's not really a problem for me.
I got
Well, a
you.
little bit. What was your rule, Chip? Don't touch my fishing rod. Just hold me so I don't go flying out of the boat. So I was his seatbelt. So don't be so,
Yeah. Oh.
It's easy to happen down there, Chip. I hooked into a Goliath grouper fishing with a guy named Captain Mick down there in the Keys. He's got an accessible boat. Didn't realize that's what it was until I set the hook the second time, and my chest strap's a Velcro strap, and it started popping. So I I told my father-in-law, grab me and don't let go. I'm not letting go of the rod. So we ended up finally having to break it off. We couldn't do nothing with that fish.
See, now that's why I stick with largemouth bass here in Pennsylvania. It's not going to pull me into the pond. I can guarantee you that.
It's all fun and games, man. It's a good time.
Now, Chip, getting kind of back to your early diagnosis. You know, you were 13 years old and diagnosed with stage 4, right?
Yep, stage 4.
And, and
It was called megaloblastoma, but in short, bad brain cancer.
and when you were in the hospital, I mean, you were in there what, like 200 days just in the hospital and multiple surgeries, and your mom had kind of talked to me a little bit about, you know, David Blanchett from Real Tree Outdoors, and I watched that video, and I got to tell you, brother, that affected me so much in a lot of different ways. You know, the hope factor, what you were looking forward to fighting through your recovery. Could you guys talk a little bit about? I know it was a terrible time in your life, but you know, you were still hopeful. You were still fighting on a daily basis. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that and what that experience was like at such a young age?
Yeah, it was sounded really hard. For me, I felt that I was given a gift from God. And I really didn't per se drown in the details. Somehow I didn't feel pain when I was in the hospital. I I just, you know, was able to keep my head up, and although I couldn't talk or move or anything really, I, you know, was able to keep focusing on, you know, when we were gonna go fishing, or next time we're gonna go hunting, or whatever.
You know, man, that's one of the things we're able to talk about a lot on this podcast is just sharing faith and how, you know, we didn't choose the injury or ailment or whatever that caused it, but we also can't stay focused on it as the main point. We can't do anything to change it. And it sounds like, Chip, man, you jumped both feet back in and just wanted to get back to living in life. And that's very commendable, man. And I'm just going to tell you, um, I'm excited to hear more about it, but thank you for your spirit.
Yeah.
What,
You know,
one of the
that faith gift, it truly was an extension of grace. He was about as sick gets, for a year. And he really didn't seem to really be experiencing all that he was going through. So on the front end, we've got that diagnosis. The remedy was an 11-hour tumor resection in his head. Stage 4, it had metastasized down into his spine. They didn't know what they were going to do about that. It looked like shotgun pellets all up and down his spine. And the cure for that was max dose radiation to the spine in time, and they weren't sure. So Chip was hearing all of these things. Of course, he was 13. You don't have any context for that. Lea and I were drinking from a fire hose, you know, trying to understand what the next steps might be. But there was an organization that stopped in. Chip has always been an outdoorsman. Chip could operate a boat at 7. He He drove little tiller outboards up and down the Chattahoochee River. He and I deer hunted. He was super active in the outdoors. And an organization came in through the hospital social worker, Outdoor Dream Foundation, and they said, they're in your state and in my state. They said, listen, when you get through this thing, we want to take you elk hunt, or we want to take you hunting anywhere you want to go. And Chip and I were in the hospital room and we thought, well, if they want to take us anywhere, where do you want to go? And he said elk hunting. And he was in no shape to go elk hunting. But hey, swing for the fences, right? And I think that hope of that elk hunt was at least as powerful as the max dose radiation, which cured cancer from his spine, and the 11-hour brain surgery and 2 years worth of rehab.
Chemo and all the.
I think that hope of a future was at least, if not more powerful than anything else. I think it's why he's here today. And so we're fortunate to have gotten through all of that. And we remember how powerful that medicine was. And that's why we try to focus on giving back. And we've been doing that in some form or fashion. And now Chip has taken up that mantle with the state. We just don't see as many mics out there, other folks in wheelchairs when we're traveling and tarpon fishing, and we know the interest is there. We know how powerful the medicine can be, so we're trying to further that and make it more accessible everywhere.
Right. And that's why we want to help you guys just find focus. This is year 29 for me with my paralysis. And like Chip, I just worked off a shift as a police officer, dove into a swimming pool, broke my neck. And not to make any of this about me, it's not that at all. God didn't make a mistake. Right away, we just started reiterating and going through the next steps in life and trying to figure it all out. And that's where I'm excited to be able to talk to you guys and be able to share your story, figure out how we can partner and find ways that Chip can get these guys and girls plugged in, because there's a huge demographic of people that just need to get out of their head for a little bit and go outdoors. We can figure something out. Just let God do the remedy. You stop worrying about the ailment.
Yeah, that's perfectly stated. We have Leah and I sit behind Chip on a steering committee with the Department of Natural Resources. And speaking about that demographic, in doing research just here in Georgia, there are some 380,000, 350,000 people classified with some sort of mobility impairment in our state. And they may not all want to be in the woods or on the water, but we want to make sure that the portion that does has a public conduit to get out there. One of the places that is world renowned, and Chip spent some time in it, was Shepherd Spinal Center and their Pathways Rehabilitation Program.
Absolutely.
And there's somebody that comes in there every day that had something happen like you had, Mike. And the world is a really dark place for a little while. And I think I don't want to speak for them, but I think their view is the quicker they can show somebody who's new to this community that there's plenty of life after an incident or injury, and start presenting options to them, the faster recovery gets. So I think that's one of the plugins.
Yeah, we've partnered with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and with Shepherd Spinal Center for the new state program called Outdoors Beyond Barriers.
Okay.
And that is Chip's program with the state, Outdoors Beyond Barriers with the Georgia DNR. We are committed this year to having 6 public land hunts for mobility impairments, 6 fishing events for mobility impairments, and 3 more private land mobility impaired hunts. So 9 hunts, 6 fishing events, all put on by the state. It's going to be really great. The state also has set aside 1,000 acres in the middle of the state near Columbus, Georgia, for only mobility impaired hunting. That 1,000 acres will only be hunted, turkey hunted, deer hunted, squirrel hunted, anything hunted only by people with mobility impairments. The state has also acquired, right now we have 18 track chairs. We've just ordered 8 more. They're a little bit different. It's a different style just to try to accommodate everyone. We have 10 accessible hunting blinds only for mobility impaired people. We are also going to get a lot of the equipment that people use. It's expensive, and you might try one thing, and one thing that works for you, Mike, may not work for Chip, may not work for Ken, may not work for Greg. So the state's going to buy some things that will be available for anyone with a mobility impairment to try. Puff blow triggers, things like that.
Right.
So before people spend the money on having one for themselves, they can at least try one, because the state's going to have a little closet full of toys.
That
And
was
that's-
one of the best things is me and Greg both went to Shepherd Center. And you're right, Ken. It's one of those things that is eye-opening and mind-blowing is that Shepherd jumps in both feet from day one. It's like, hey, your injury is this. My doctor walked in, said you broke your neck, you'll never walk again. And so we went right to work, and then Therapeutic Rec wants to know what your passions are. And so I don't want to overspeak for Greg. He can chime in on his, but man, that place is just mind-blowing. And I'm excited to see what we can do. I'm not far from you. I would love to partner with you guys on anything. One of the things we've talked about, I'm pushing a lot. I do a lot of advocacy in South Carolina, is being able to be proactive with Georgia so that, because South Carolina has a lifetime hunt and fishing license for people with disabilities. So if you could go in and show paralysis or whatever the ailments may be, the doctor can write a script. You get a lifetime hunt and fishing license. The only thing you may have to pay for is like a duck tag or saltwater tag if they're specific. But what we're trying to do is be able to be proactive with Georgia to say, if we come down and have a couple guys to hunt, what can you do to let them also use that hunting and fishing license there? Because I've told them when talking to Governor Kemp, whenever we get there, if you let me bring my wife, we're going to spend more money in her going and getting her nails done, the hotels, all that. Outdoors are not her thing at all. So if we could do the tourism side of it, guys, it's so much bigger and better. And it goes back to opening minds. It's not just about the hunting and fishing aspect. It's retroactive. It's receptive, but it's also about treating the whole family dynamic.
Well, the best part of hunting, and everyone agrees, is the campfire when you're done.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
And the people that don't want to go in the woods still like to sit by the campfire and hear everyone's stories.
Yes,
The,
ma'am.
Back to the licensing, that was one of Chip's big things also, and that is right now we have a 3-year disability license that has been proposed to be a lifetime license. We are also looking at they're proposing, the legislature has to vote on it, of course, but a non-resident disability license.
Right.
So it wouldn't be as expensive as a regular non-resident hunter. So that is being, but that has to get put in front of the legislature, but it is being proposed.
Yeah.
So Mike, you're so right about opening minds. It's not that the mind is closed per se. It's more from a lack of awareness. So in the lifetime license case, some states, Chip is hunted in 24 of the 50 states. And in fact, I don't want to get off the train of thought, but I know you're using South Carolina as a bit of a model in your program, because they're down the road on some of their disability invitations and have some pretty nice programs. But the lifetime license you know, one instance of somebody getting a license that maybe shouldn't have taints the minds of others. And you know,
Right.
I think there's an opening that's look if there's folks doing something like that, then that's kind of on them. But the greater good will be served by having everybody participate.
Right.
And how many people are you guys planning on taking hunting, Chip? What's the target number this year with all that you guys are doing?
Well, we have 9 events that are scheduled, and the number they're talking about is 10 per hunt this year.
So that's 90. Do you
90.
guys care do you care where they come from?
No,
No.
Everybody's
So
welcome.
we just need to make it easy for them.
Yeah.
And we're working.
all
Right.
over.
Hey,
And-
you let us know what we can do to help facilitate that, and we're all over it. And Ken, you're right. Not to keep, I know I keep bumping Greg out of there. You're right. I think a lot of times these lawmakers, they want to help, they don't know how to help. And
That's it.
we go to do hunts, and I've done wounded warrior hunts, and not to throw names around or to belittle anybody. That's not the reasoning behind it. But it's the same thing. You'll see one bad apple or somebody come in and they'll bash the land that somebody's poured heart and blood into, or they'll come from out of state and don't kill a deer or whatever, and then they just bash the whole organization. There's a lot
Yeah.
of jerks out there, and unfortunately, there's a lot of wheeled jerks out there. And so all we can do is try to give them the best bang for the buck and facilitate advocacy on a real level. Just keep pounding these lawmakers and the landowners and DNR and saying, this is what we need. Just help us do it. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking for a hand up. What can we do to make this happen? And work with us.
Yeah.
And so, man, I'm excited, Chip. I'm excited to see
Yeah.
all the stuff you got going on, man.
It should be interesting to see where the thing goes since we started. I mean, it's really taken on its own life. I think there's a lot more interest than what we thought there would
Yeah.
be, or what they thought would be.
Yeah, so it's a commissioner level initiative. It is going to happen. A department has been set up, and the governor he's behind it. It's funny, Chip delivered his dream speech to the constituents of Georgia at the state's annual fundraiser. It's an event called Weekend for Wildlife. It's actually hosted by the First Lady of Georgia, and it's for non-game species. So they do a special appeal every year, and this year it was at the Cloister in Sea Island, which is a pretty well-heeled. They don't have a lot of track chairs inside the Cloister at Sea Island, but Chip brought his in and drove it up on stage and gave about a 10-minute appeal for making Georgia be a national leader in access to the outdoors for the disabled. And then he told them, and Governor Kemp was sitting right in front of the podium and was obviously moved. And Chip asked for a little seed money from the crowd. And what they give you?
$470,000.
That kicked this thing off pretty quick.
Yeah.
Oh, you think?
I was hoping that you guys would talk a little bit about that, because in preparing for today's podcast, I read that article and I was just amazed at that number. And I'm so glad that you brought it up. I mean, not everybody has the family, Chip, that you have that can take people out hunting. I mean, obviously your mom and dad can do a lot for you, getting you onto hunts and fishing trips, but not everyone has that. And you as a family have brought the state in to do that for people that don't have it. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to thank the whole family for everything you're doing. And we don't say that stuff lately. I mean, you guys are making it happen for thousands of residents in Georgia and other people that want to come into the state of Georgia. You've seen a need, and you not only thought about yourself, but you selflessly thought about others to make this happen. So thank you. I mean, just so much as a family for what you're doing.
Well, it's an honor. We were taken care of. Money just flowed into our doors when Chip was sick for no reason other than I hope this helps.
Right.
And we were insured and didn't need that, which was the seed money for Chip's foundation. And God interceded, and Chip survived and has the spirit that he does have. So we have been able to experience the world, I think, about as happily as you could with that kind of change in life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but it certainly has been a blessing.
For sure.
And
The blessings that we get to see that other people don't see
Sure.
because their life is easier right now. Everyone's going to have something, but
Right.
when you're floating along like we were, we would say, yes, we're blessed, but now I really know we're blessed because
Absolutely.
we get to see all these good people that other people don't notice.
Right.
Zooms right by them.
so
it
at the
sounds,
state level, we've been, well, prior to the state level, we've had the benefit of traveling with other charitable organizations. Some of the things that you guys have on your link exchange, all great services. But at the state level, for any state, I think, okay, where do I grab this thing and start going is kind of the question. And with Chip, his small team within the DNR 3 or 4 years ago, they started some state land hunts, and they were for it. And they're for it in a much bigger way now. But it's a legislative event to change hunting and fishing rules, and I think once we got involved and started demonstrating that, hey, it's hard enough to get into the car, much less
sir.
out of the car and into the woods. We need some special considerations. This community needs some special considerations, not only equipment, but access, favorable seasons. We want to give as good an experience as we can give. And I'll be honest with you, in the first couple of events, we didn't have that. We were last hunt of the year because it's all we could do to secure the property. There was pressure, all the things that you guys are so intimately familiar with. But our participants could have cared less about the success. And that's been Chip in my experience, whether we've been in Montana or Kansas or whatever. Of course, we want to bag something, but we've had more fun meeting people, seeing how different places do different things. The communities there are so supportive.
And the campfire at the end of the day.
Campfire at the end of the day.
It's never about the tag.
It's never about the tag, but it's the tag that gets you all in the same room.
Yeah.
And I think once we demonstrated at the state level that, hey, we could get people in the room, everybody wants to do this. Once we saw that, it was like, okay, let's figure out a way to get these guys a deer. Let's figure out a way to get these folks a fish. What do we need to do? And that's what really led to this broader initiative and the doors sort of opening up.
On one of those hunts, I was dropping Chip off. Chip was guiding this other guy. His name was Jerry. And Jerry had a stroke in his 40s and he was 60 now. And it's dark. And, I'm trying to back a trailer. I'm not real good at that, but I'm doing that, getting 2 tank chairs off. I'm walking them into the woods. I'm going to stick them in a blind at 5 a.m. And I look back and Jerry's crying. And I couldn't see what was wrong. I was like, are you okay? Dark. I'm making sure you're okay. And Chip's there. And Jerry was just so moved because he said, I haven't walked myself into the woods in 20 years.
Yeah. Powerful.
It's what's so
All you
cool
gotta
about
do
it.
is see that once and you'll go to work for anybody.
Absolutely. You see God's power in the grace of that. You know, I spent
Yep.
several years trying to think I was a manly man until I got hurt. God will show you what true power is.
That's right. That's
Hey,
exactly right.
I absolutely am embarrassed to say, got to jump off. I've never had to leave a podcast early. I'm back in the PhD program, and they're doing a professional panel with me today. So, listen, Greg, teamed me up with you guys. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be able just to talk for a few minutes. And I mean that. Let me know what I can do, Chip. Man, I'll do anything I can to help you. I think you guys are doing something phenomenal, and I really mean it, man. I feel your spirit, and just see the joy that you're bringing, and I have no doubt that you're bringing it to so many others.
Thank you.
See
Absolutely,
you soon.
Take care, Mike.
absolutely.
Friends
Thank
and
you,
trouble.
guys.
Take care, brother.
Absolutely.
Now, Chip, what's the next adventure you guys are going on then? We're just at the end of May here, and I know you said you have a bunch of hunts and fishing programs coming up. What's the very next thing that you're looking forward to?
Well, the next thing we're doing on a personal note, we're gonna go, Montana, mule deer hunt, but, right now down here, it's fishing time down here, and, we're doing a lot of events, fishing events, and personally just fishing around the house.
Have you been back? Have you been back to Montana since your 10-point adventure with Realtree? Have you been back there hunting since then?
Yeah, I have. I've been back there
And the thing,
I'm trying to think.
once or twice.
you were in Great Falls
With
Yeah.
turkey hunting.
with Shoot Straight TV,
Oh, right.
Chad Shear after the Milk River, but you have not been back to this is the return to the Milk River. This year will be the return. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to post a link to that video because, man, that can change so many people's lives. Not because of the monster buck that I'm going to give it away. You got a monster buck, but just the whole experience. I just love that message so much, Chip. I really did. And
Yeah, it's a pretty meaningful message. It was that whole thing was pretty special the way it worked out.
I can't imagine now that whole experience at that young of an age. My injury, my spinal cord injury happened whenever I was 31. And as Mike said, we're both graduates of Shepherd Center. I was living in Cape Cod in Massachusetts when I had a diving accident, and I spent about a month and a half, 2 months in Boston in their hospitals, and I got flown down to Shepherd Center by medical jet and did my rehab there. And that was one of the most profound places I think anybody could ever find themselves in with a spinal cord injury. And Mike had mentioned a little bit about therapeutic rec. Those people gave me hope again. And just like you, Chip, the hope that I could still be able to do the outdoors. Before my injury, I was a huge bow hunter. I'd, hunt 3, 4, 5 different states every year with my bow. And I didn't really think I could do that again until a therapeutic specialist took me down to the gym at Shepherd Center and let me shoot an air rifle, still hooked to my vent. I was on a portable vent, and that really touched me, and it touched my family. Where if I could still do that just a different way, I had hope. And I think, like you guys, as long as you have hope, you can do anything. Not to get too sentimental or try to belabor the point, but if you don't have hope in your life, it's a dark place. And people find
Yeah.
hope in a lot of different ways, whether it's the outdoors or family or sporting events or what have you. But it definitely changed my life, just that moment in a gymnasium in Shepherd Center.
That's interesting, that particular moment. So that was one of my prayers early on with Chip's diagnosis, because I knew how much he loved it. You know, if he does make it, let's not have the outdoors escape him. And boy, that was answered in spades. But with any traumatic brain injury or spinal cord injury, particularly later in life, I think it's the unknown that puts everybody in that dark space. So, or potentially, we met a friend who I used to hunt with, who had a deer stand accident, and from South Carolina, who went to Shepherd, and I went to see him in those early days, and it was it was early and super dark place. There's a period of time where I think you wonder, okay, how can I even function within this room? Not to mention what I might go do next. But once you get to that point, whether it's archery or Shepherd has adaptive water skiing or state sponsored fishing with electric reels or what, the more you can run in front of people and say, hey, I know things are different, but you might be interested in this or you might be interested in that. Shepherd, I don't think any institution does a better job than Shepherd at presenting those options to folks.
Yeah, Chip was a patient there too. They have the spinal cord program, but they also have brain injury program. It's
Right.
called Shepherd Pathways, and that's the part Chip was involved in, and they were amazing as well.
And one of the big things for me was I was not physically ready to go back into the outdoors right away. I was very limited in what I could do, and it was all I could do to concentrate on living, on breathing, on feeding myself
Exactly.
for a number of years until I got strong enough that I wanted to do something again in the outdoors. But I always remembered the adaptive equipment, the ability to be able to do that. So it took me a number of years before I could physically be strong enough to want to hunt again. And whenever I did, there was no real information out on the internet. I looked, so there wasn't any info. So that's why I started Accessible Hunter. And I started Accessible Hunter, a blog, in 2010, and we've been doing it ever since. And the whole goal of Accessible Hunter is just to get information out to people that there's a different way to do things. There's technology.
For me, I mean, it was crazy. Obviously, I was diagnosed at a young age, but it's like they get you through it, help you get through it. And there's help for older people, 40 and up. And there's help for kids, 15 and lower, but that leaves that big gap where there's nothing.
Right.
And you can't really find a lot there.
And that's why you create your own organization, right?
Yep.
That's exactly why.
Yep.
Because if you need it, somebody else needs it too. And that's the way I looked at it too, Chip. There wasn't any information out there, so I was gonna put something out, even if it wasn't great, even if it wasn't the best. It was all started with a little blog that, hey, this is what I'm doing, and you do the best you can. That's my message in life, I guess. You do the best you can, and no matter how you get there, you get there.
Well, Greg, I think you've done a great job. It's Greg's Greg's got the most extensive link exchange of anything I've seen out there. So your work is helping a lot of people too, sir. We poked around a long time to try to find a site like yours. There's an awful lot of connection and information there. Great job. Kudos to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And Leah put all this into a form for me. I'm working with my internet provider to get that up so that it's in a much more readable format, because I'm definitely hunting and pecking, typing stuff out, and she put it all together for me. So it's
That's
going
great.
to
You
be.
guys get the Excel done?
Actually, it was
Yeah.
Chip and his partner at work, Lily. They did it together.
Well,
That
I got to
works.
tell you a big thank you, both Chip and Lily. And I'm working with GoDaddy, just kind of give them a plug, I guess, to get that up, that it makes it a little bit more accessible for people. But we try, and I know that we all have an agenda. You guys are so busy trying to do everything. As Mike said, anything we can do to help, and we try to keep our podcast 35 45 minutes, but would love to have you guys back on a couple of times a year if you can fit it into your schedule, and find out what you're doing, Chip, and follow along, because every time I Google you, man, there's something else that I'm like, wow, look at this, this is exciting. And people need to know this stuff. They need to know that it's out there, and they need to know what you're doing. And I'm just so impressed with you, Chip. I wish I lived closer, because I know we'd hang out in the ground blind somewhere, some way.
Yeah.
I know you would.
Well, if you ever get down here, come on.
Yeah.
We can do it.
We
You
got
bet.
places. Yeah. Come on.
Places to go and people to see.
That's perfect. Chip, I want to give you the last word on the podcast. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't, or anything I can do for you personally, or that Mike can do?
Not much. I would just say the biggest thing you guys can do is pointing people our direction, and get people to get in our program and benefit from our program, and just help me show them that there's people out there that will want to do this. Cause I know there's a bunch, but they're kind of questionable. So if we can show that people want to do this and will travel and all that, game on.
Game on, brother.